The Resuscitation of Sherlock Holmes is a parody written by J.M., published in the Harpers Weekly on the 31st of August 1901. After the publication of Arthur Conan Doyle's The Hound of the Baskervilles in August 1901, a compilation of fictional letters about Sherlock Holmes' hiatus. The Resuscitation of Sherlock Holmes. The resuscitation of Sherlock Holmes is an accomplished fact. Read the August Strand. In view of the reappearance of this distinguished character, I submit the following documents in correspondence to the case. From the London Daily Mail, 19th of July. Zermatt, Friday. An extraordinary rumour is circulating here that Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the eminent criminal investigator whose tragic death in a crevasse was reported circumstantially several years ago, creating a great sensation all around the world, has recently been seen in Zermatt. A well-known guide, Andrew Breen, has made an affidavit before a notary that on Thursday last he saw Mr. Holmes in a cab. Breen maintains there could be no mistake about his identity, although he was obviously taking every precaution to keep himself out of the public gaze as possible. It may be remembered that when Mr. Holmes and Professor Moriarty were first reported to have fallen into the crevasse, the story was received with incredulity, and the suggestion made it was merely a rouse on Mr. Holmes's part with some ulterior object. This was denied at the time, but Breen's story now justifies the scepticism of several years ago. From the London Daily Express, 20th of July. As our Mr. Hesketh Pritchard has returned from his search for the giant sloth, which he was unfortunately unable to discover, though he met with indubitable traces of its existence, we have determined, regardless of expense, to dispatch him forthwith to Switzerland, where the reappearance of Sherlock Holmes is reported. Holmes is said to have been seen as late as last week in Zermatt. We always suspected he was not really dead, and venture a hypothesis that he did not fall to the bottom of the precipice when he fell over the ledge with Professor Moriarty. He was doubtless caught by a clump of trees 20 or 30 feet below, and fearing pursuit, some other Moriarty, he reported death free unchallenged, himself for that time under another name in one of the cantons. If our Pritchard is as successful as he hopes to be, he will bring the great investigator back to London to score greater triumphs than ever in the interest of truth and justice. Le Journal de Genève, 19th of July. What we maintained in the face of the whole world's press some years ago has at last proved correct, and the notorious Sherlock Holmes is proved a greater liar and fraud than we ventured to suggest he was. It will be remembered to our readers that Holmes, while on a wild goose chase over the continent, found his way to Switzerland and was stated to have fallen from the ledge of an alpine pass along with that scoundrel of the dynamite English party named Moriarty. The story was circulated everywhere, and the result was that alpine climbing was rendered very unpopular for 2 seasons. From the very first, we disbelieved the story, which had many suspicious elements in it. The only witness to the extraordinary and the inexplicable accident whereby the 2 men were said to have lost their lives were one Watson, friend of Holmes, who, so far as we've been able to ascertain, earned his living by narrating the exploits of Holmes. That Watson was in a state of intoxication when he returned from the mountain to ask for a search expedition was well known at the time, although delicacy prevented us from mentioning the fact. The search party, consigning of 19 guides, went all over the pass and left not a yard of it unexplored, but they failed to find a scrap of evidence to support Watson's story. This of itself would have been sufficient to throw grave doubts upon the story, but 2 days later, Watson, pretending to go out for a toothbrush, eluded the vigilance of the genial proprietor of the Bear of Bern Hotel, whose advertisement can be found on page 4, and decamped from the district, leaving his bill unpaid. Influenced by the serious injury which was done to the popularity of mountaineering by the narratives of Holmes' death, we boldly expressed a doubt of the whole affair, and were threatened with an action for damages by the English canon named Doyle for suggesting that the story was false, but we now withdraw our apology and brand Holmes and Watson as unprincipled ruffians. We hope soon to be able to lay bare the plot where this cock and bull story was an essential part. Letter from Holmes to Watson, Zermatt, the 5th of May. Don't you think it was about time I was permitted to leave this confounded place? I'm sick of it. It's all very well to maintain that the longer I stay away, the keener will be the interest on my return to active work again. But I'm not blind to the possibilities of a generation rising who not know Joseph. I hear about this new fellow called Captain Kettle, who seems to be a little in our line. I hope you're not ass enough to let him get into a position where we can easily bounce him out of it. But first and last, I'm sick of this D place and the fleas. From Watson to Holmes, London, the 8th of May. On no account venture into the open for a while yet. Doyle's far too busy to have anything to do with us for the moment, for he's over head and ears in the war movement. There's nothing at all in the Kettle story. Kettle is simply a low maritime bully who could not maintain the regard and affection of the British for more than 6 months. Besides, he's given up that business and has been cavorting in the messenger boy at the Gaiety for the year back. I believe he's started a farm somewhere about Hythe lately. There's never the slightest danger that Kettle could seriously interfere with your position. Why, you are unique, my boy, unique. There has been nothing like you since old Leclerc. And if you stayed away 10 years, you would be hailed like an emperor on your return. But make no mistake, if it is oof that you wanted, I will send it. I can't see that the work of a waiter at a Swiss hotel is any harder work for you than investigating. And if you continue to wear the false whiskers, you'll never be discovered. In any case, it's not the time to come back here. We're all in a mess over the war. Money is tight, and our own particular form of entertainment would scarcely go, I fear. From Holmes to Watson, Zermatt, 3rd of June. False whiskers? That's the confounded thing. The boss of this place insists on my shaving, and if my hirsute adornment goes, it's all up with us, for I'll be spotted, sure. And you'll say, I'll never be discovered. I begin to fear that is what you want. Why, man, I long to be discovered. Discovery, let me remind you, Watson, was my business. It's all very well for you and Doyle to live like lords on the strength of my alleged reputation, but I'll be hanged if I stay any longer waiting on cook trippers and hurting Swiss fleas. Unless you send me enough money to get back to London comfortably, I shall blow the gaff. That's flat. Telegram. Watson to Holmes, 5th of June. For heaven's sake, don't. We'll see what Doyle says. Newnes encourages the idea, but I think it's suicide. Extract from letter by Lord Rosebery to the London City Liberal Club. The paralysis of liberalism is due to a fundamental and incurable antagonism of principle with regards to the empire at large and our consequent policy. More vital than that is the fact that we want a mind sufficiently strong to influence the warring elements of party to placate the opposition, now howling like wolves out of all harmony. In the great crises of history, the hour brought forward such a man. I need scarcely recall to you the case of Napoleon, who took the scraps of empire and welded them to his mighty purpose. But where are we to look for such a man? I have in my mind, at the moment, the name of who, it seems to me, is alone able to save the party, whose name some years ago was on every lip, though since there has been an interregnum of mysterious silence. Need I say I allude to Mr. Sherlock Holmes? If there is one in Europe today who could discover the mind of liberalism, who could see what lies at our heart as a party, it is this great and world-eminent investigator. It could not fail to gratify many of you to learn that Mr. Sherlock Holmes, whose death in Switzerland some years ago were led to be by some as yet inexplicable events to deplore, has been, the past fortnight, been reported alive and well. If that is so, and there is every reason to believe it is so, we have in Mr. Sherlock Holmes the man and the mind. I myself shall never voluntarily return to public life associated with this party, but I have the uttermost confidence in recommending Mr. Holmes at your notice. From the Agony column, London Times, 20th of July. Sherlock Holmes, if you're in town, come to us at once. All will be forgotten and forgiven. Watson. 30th of July. Watson, rats, simply rats, have seen Sir George and CD, and we propose to leave you out of the show altogether. The ex-waiter, Soho. From the London Star, the 1st of August. Sherlock Holmes is said to be back in London again and residing in Soho. He is described as looking younger than ever, and we see, indeed, little reason why the suggestion of Lord Rosebery should not be followed, and Mr. Holmes be entrusted with the discovery of the Liberal Party. Dr. Doyle interviewed, from Literature, 2nd of August. So, it is really the case that Mr. Sherlock Holmes has been discovered alive? I do not commit myself in any way upon that point, said the distinguished author. You have seen, doubtless, as much of the evidence as I have. I know that my friend, Mr. Watson, is a most trustworthy man, and I give the uttermost credit to his story of the dreadful affair in Switzerland. He may have been mistaken, of course. It may not have been Mr. Holmes who fell from the ledge after all, or the whole thing might have been the result of hallucination. I confess the stories now being published seem circumstantial enough, and that Holmes may well be alive, but I have not seen him. There's been an advertisement in the Times suggesting that I have, but it was not true. I've never seen Holmes. Watson, however, lately came upon certain old documents dealing with a part of the career of Holmes early in life, and I propose to publish these. They may be interesting. They may indeed induce Holmes, if he's really alive, to manifest himself again. The end. I hope you enjoyed that pastiche. If you did, please like, and subscribe for more pastiches which I intend to publish soon. Until then, bye bye.